Hi, everyone. Parker Stevenson here from Evolve Finance. We have an awesome guest occasionally throughout the year. Especially because I get to meet so many amazing people in the online space, and sometimes they're also money experts in the finance money realm. And Bari is someone I've wanted to have a conversation with for a long time. We've been in each other's circles, I'd say, Bari, for a long time, but never got a chance to really connect. So I was just telling her before this, like selfishly, this is going to be an opportunity for me to learn more about Bari's expertise, because I've seen, I think, a lot of the world Bari lives in with our own clients, and I'm just absolutely thrilled to get her insights and thoughts on just the world, that like the psychology of money, or the art of money, as you like to say, Bari. But thank you for being here, Bari. Really, really nice to spend some time with you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
So you have a very interesting expertise. So I would love for you to share a little bit with everyone about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a financial therapist, and I have a master's in somatic psychology. So sometimes I say I'm a somatic-based financial therapist. And I've been doing financial therapy since 2001. So I was one of the very first folks in the field to be doing this. And at some point I just realized, I got a master's in psychology and we never talked about money, so I thought my topics would be sexuality and relationships and intimacy and death and grief. And then when my student loan came due, that's when I realized we never talked about money, and we never trained as therapists to, how do we start our own businesses, to how do we do the bookkeeping, to when our clients that are couples are fighting, how do we support them? How do we work with them, let alone understanding our own money emotions and money psychology and money stories? So, in 2001, I wound up, I had got the master's in psychology. Then I had a bookkeeping business for 4 years with other therapists and artists and creatives. And then in 2001 is when I merged financial literacy and emotional literacy and created my first financial therapy methodology that I've been teaching for 23 years, in a year-long program for lay folks, a mentor program for other therapists and financial professionals. And I've written 2 books. And I'm a mom of a teenager, and that's a teeny. And I love dark chocolate, so that's a little bit.
Me too. I'm right there with you. So, and that was kind of what I was curious about to know, Bari, if you like started your career thinking I'm going to be a therapist, and then found this niche and realized that there was this sort of unserved aspect of psychology that you were able to kind of niche down to.
Yeah. I mean, when my student loan came due and I looked back on my training and realized we didn't even have a conversation about money. So, which is ridiculous. Like, how do you get through graduate school training to be a therapist and never talk about money in any way, shape, or form, right? Because it impacts all of our relationships. It impacts our careers, everything. So, in that moment, I think that I thought I was the only one who did not have a healthy relationship with money. So there was a lot of shame for me at first. And a lot of my folks come in with shame as like the leading emotion, the leading experience, right? Which we can talk about. But I was seeing this with folks from all different economic classes. So, in graduate school and that whole community, some people had money, and, they didn't have student loans, and college and graduate school was paid for. And others of us, we had to take out loans. And, so there was definitely a little bit of a divide. But I basically, when I looked around, when I got out of myself, I realized that everyone from all different lineages and backgrounds in economic classes had money issues, meaning we had some strengths around money, but we all had our own set of challenges around money. And as I was saying, a lot of people, I didn't say this, did not receive a financial education growing up. Right. So financial literacy and emotional literacy was left out of most of our educations growing up, or we got parts and pieces. And so, it just became a mission for me. I mean, I had to do my own work. I had to learn about money, which bookkeeping was the first step for me. And it was incredibly empowering to do to learn QuickBooks and all of that. But I pretty quickly realized I'm not the only one, who has challenges around money or didn't learn certain things. And here's the thing. I go back and forth with a colleague about this. This is like the only stat that I use. I'm not clinical or academic in any way, but here's my stat. 85% of our money decisions are based on our emotions.
Mm.
Okay. So, I mean, that led me to creating a whole methodology, which I call the art of money, but back in the day I called conscious bookkeeping. And it's
Mm.
basically my financial therapy methodology that integrates money healing, money practices, and money maps.
So before we dive deeper, then, can you share your two books again with everybody? Just because I
Yeah,
don't want to wait till the end.
I
So
always
what are
have
your
them.
books?
Okay, so The Art of Money, a life-changing
Beautiful.
guide to financial happiness. And this one is this is my method, all the tools, all the practices, money dates, body check-ins, how to make good money decisions. And there's lots of storytelling and my own stories because I got to be walking my talk. And then it's also stories of folks in the community. My second
Awesome.
book, The Art of Money journal, is 300 journaling questions.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty awesome. It's the one thing I've learned over the last 9 years is just how sensitive conversations around money can be. And it's like it's more vulnerable than talking about things like sex, like other things that our puritanical society would tell us, like, you don't talk about these things. And just with my conversations with our clients, and we had a podcast where we were interviewing our clients and talking about their financial journeys. And like you said, like, doesn't matter if they came from a privileged background,
yeah.
came from like true poverty, and everywhere in between, everyone's dealing with something, and the emotions around just how money was modeled for them growing up. So this is why I was so thrilled to get a chance to talk with you publicly, Bari, and share this with other people, because I have so many questions I want to ask you here. So I just wanted to start off right off the bat. If you're already feeling the vibes, go check out Bari's book, The Art of Money. Check out the workbook. She's been doing this a really long time, and I hope you don't mind me saying, a legend in the industry, because again, she's kind of the pioneer of even just talking about money from a truly emotional standpoint. And I wanted to go back to that stat, because even if the 85% isn't an exact number,
Right.
this is something that marketers know this about us, right? Like our entire economic structure is reliant on marketers being able to get us into an emotional state, so we'll pull out our wallets, right?
Right.
So like that's why I'm like, of course it's I wouldn't be surprised if we actually did, found out it was 100% emotional or 95% emotional, right? Because I feel like our economic system as a whole is very, very reliant on us making emotional decisions around money. And we're all just trying to fight this uphill battle around how can we bring a little more of our logical reasoning brain into the picture, while also acknowledging that we're all being emotionally manipulated to buy stuff.
Yeah, and I see it a little differently. So recently I was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, and their question was, what's your favorite what's your favorite brain hack to feel less stress about money and make better money decisions? It was quite a mouthful. And I was
That's
like,
a lot.
it was a lot, but I was like, wait a second. First of all, my favorite brain hack is to get out of your brain and into your body, right?
Okay.
So, because for me, it's not in the brain, right? I mean, I like for me, everything's like, yes, how do you make a decision from the logical, that your brain and your heart or your body? So it's always both, right? Mind, body.
Totally.
But for me, in that, it's get out of your brain and into your body to understand what set of emotions comes up for you. So for me, I do want to help people to get in their bodies, to understand what are the sensations that come up, what are the set of emotions. So is it shame? And shame is just, I'm not okay around money or whatever it is, right? I'm not okay. Everyone else learned this but me. If I just come from a wealthy family, I would have learned more about money. If I had just come from a middle class family, right? Or something's wrong with me. I'm stupid. I suck at money. Everyone else knows this. That's shame. But there's shame, there's anxiety, there's anger, there's sadness, there's guilt, there's jealousy, there's so many. And then there's joy and excitement and hope, and there's the whole spectrum of emotion. So as a therapist and as a somatic therapist, I want to teach people tools on how to just learn to name what the emotions are, sit with them, not run away from them, not ignore them, not push them under the rug, not stay in their head, just not ignore them. Just say, hello, what is it? Oh, I'm feeling sad. Well, okay, what is that about? What does that remind you of? What is the memory there? You know, so the very first tool that I give people is the body check-in. Because
that makes total sense.
Yeah. I mean, one of the very first little groups that I taught 23 years ago was in my living room in California. I don't live there any longer, but in an apple orchard, right? We might have been even sitting on the floor in a circle, right? It was very much hippie back then. So, but I remember the very first evening of this first financial therapy course that I was teaching, I asked people to start telling their money stories. And I could just see deer in headlights. You know, people shut down, people got quiet. It was too much too soon. So I left that first evening going, what am I missing? I'm missing somatic tools. So the very next week I said, here's a body check-in. Here's how you do it. You just take a moment. It's like doing a meditation, centering what's going on in your body. What's the emotion? Or what's going on in your body? What's the sensation? What's going on in your body? Physically, are your shoulders up? Are they down? Are your legs crossed? Are they open? Right? Just notice something that's happening in your body. And just even that gave them a way to check in. What's the emotion? Name it, sit with it, not ignore it. And then I always end a body check-in with what is one little resourcing thing that you could do. That's what it's called in somatic psychology. Can you lower your shoulders and do a little shoulder shimmy? Can you loosen your jaw? Can you take a deeper breath? Right? So resourcing is just what is one little adjustment that I can make in my body right now that's going to help me feel more present, feel more okayness, feel more calm in this moment, whatever it is. So the body check-in helped them in that group just then share some family history. Oh, this is how I was different than my siblings. I was the spender, they were the savers, and this is how I felt about it. Or this is how my mom's relationship to money. I give folks this tool to do before money conversation. So do a body check-in, just as some prep. How are you doing? What are you noticing? Can you calm yourself down? What's going on? Right? Or sometimes you forget the body check-in before is prep, but in the heat of the moment, you're like, I'm really freaking out, or I'm starting to hyperventilate, you know, in the car dealership. What's going on? You know, let's do a body check-in. Or if you forget to do a body check-in before the money conversation or money decision or money purchase, or during, you do it after as a debriefing. How did that go? What could I have done different? What was going on with me? Right. So I'm kind of I'm giving you a tool, but it kind of answers this question of, okay, so if 85 to 95% of our money decisions are based on emotions, I don't want you to ignore them.
Yeah.
Right now, but also money emotions aren't going to go away for most of my folks. You can neutralize them. You can make them smaller. You can catch them quicker. But I want you to have some tools and practices to bring a body check-in, bring it to the money conversations, bring it to the money decisions, you know, bring it to all of those moments. Don't ignore it. And I always say, do the body check-in first, and then have the money date, and then whip out the numbers, and then, you know, get into all the practical parts of making this decision. It's not just checking with your body and make a decision. It's checking with your body, see how you're doing, seeing if you can get your breath deeper in your body, see if you can learn something about yourself, your money story, what you're afraid of. You know, I used to be really afraid to make big purchases because they were so fast. You go to the car dealership and you have to make a decision within 20 minutes. And I had a whole experience years ago where I was starting to hyperventilate. So I went to the bathroom and did a body check-in and got my breath down in my body and said, what does this remind me of? Oh, I don't like fast money decisions. Oh, this reminds me of a tax audit that my family had that really freaked me out. Oh, I just took a few moments. And then when I was done, with the feelings, then I was like, oh, no, I need to have a money date in the car dealership. I came out, me and my husband sat down, and then we asked all our questions that we ask when we're going to make a money decision. Do we have the cash flow for this? Is this decision in alignment with our values? Yeah, it was an electric Leaf, our first electric car, right? Is this decision going to impact our larger goal of buying a home one day? So we went through our practical questions, and we only were able to ask them because we know our numbers from doing our bookkeeping, right?
Yep.
And then we made a good decision. So it's part body check-in, checking in with the emotions, working with them, sitting with them, moving them to the side, and then having a money date and getting to the practical parts of a money decision. So I just answered like 5 of your questions in that.
Don't worry. I have lots of other questions here to go along with this.
Yeah,
And just in general, I think this is just good life habits in general, right?
exactly.
Like it's like applying them specifically for money is brilliant and so helpful. But I mean, this is just like so for my personal development and mental health journey as well, because I was going to ask you how many like what the ratio of men to women are that go through your program. Typically, is it mostly women most of the time, I
Yeah,
assume? Or
my husband thinks it's like 95% women, and I don't think it's that high. I always said it's 80% women, 20% men. Now some of the men come in from it's couples, a couple come
sure.
in.
But I have thoughts on this. So
Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me because even with
yeah,
our business as well, we do tend to attract, I'd say 60 to 70% women, maybe not as high because there's, everyone needs bookkeeping.
right.
But I think for my own personal journey, you talk about just bringing awareness to the emotions that are arising in you when you're thinking about money or anything. And that's the one thing about, I don't want to speak for all men, but I just hope that there's men that can hear and listen to this, because talking about emotions and feelings is not always looked highly upon, at least in American society, for men. And what I've discovered throughout my journey, and especially I've never felt like a macho guy. I've never been like big, tough, like alpha. Like that's not, I've never joked or kid myself into thinking that's who I am. Like I'm a pretty sensitive dude. And I
Yeah,
still was like, holy crap, I don't pay attention to how I'm feeling at all. Like could not name my emotions, like was just like powering through stuff, right? So
yeah.
that's why I just kind of share for maybe, any male viewers or listeners who are thinking about this stuff. I think that's just such an it seems so simple, right, Barry? It seems so like, no duh, pay attention. But it's just, I think, especially in my case, I'm not around money, but just in general, like not just powering through things all the time with a lack of awareness. And I've studied Buddhism. I love mindfulness. Like these are things that I thought I understood, but until I actually did some work on it, I truly didn't know how I felt really about anything other than in very broad descriptions of mad, sad, good, just very simple, basic feelings. And I think for, again, our podcast, I'm going to go behind the scenes here a little bit. There's a lot of reasons we've kind of paused the podcast this year. One of them is our book launching this year, but also getting people on our podcast to talk about their money stories. We would literally have guests that would go, I think this podcast is brilliant. I've listened to a bunch of the episodes, but I can't do this. Like I can't go on here and talk about this stuff because again, it's triggering. And I think just listening to other people's stories brings up emotions in themselves that they don't understand. So my point of saying all this is that, number one, I think guys, you got to pay attention to this stuff too. I think it's even more important because I think there's a lot of men out there who, like myself, just aren't thinking about, like, aren't really processing what they're feeling, let alone around money. And then number two, just like how common it was though, for like, even when I was talking specifically with entrepreneurs, these very successful entrepreneurs who have businesses that other people are aspiring to, are like having a lot of very complicated feelings and emotions, having this conversation with me about how was money modeled for them growing up? How have they managed their money? How have they felt about that? Right. And so again, I just didn't want, with everything you said, which I think makes so much sense, there's simplicity to it, but also there's difficulty in the execution of actually paying attention, like acknowledging the feelings there, admitting it's there, doing the work to question it and try to understand it. And that's where I could see someone like yourself could be a really helpful guide through a lot of that work.
Yeah, and also, I mean, my programs are a guide, and it's done in community. So, we used to have a forum years ago which was wonderful, but also people would come in kind of SOS in the middle of the night. Like,
Mm.
oh, I'm freaking out, help me, you know, and I didn't want to have a forum that was an SOS, right? So that was like an emergency center. We wound up moving it to a weekly co-working. So it's a weekly co-working where the community comes together every Saturday morning just to take a step on your money to-do list, or as people call it, your money chore list, or your money, you know, the money to-do list is ongoing forever. So I got to fill out my tax forms. I got to reach out to the IRS and work out a payment plan. I got to find a new bookkeeping company. I got to, right? It's on and on. So we moved the forum to more of a co-working, which people love, right? You're saying so much that I want to comment on.
Well, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts around what I said then? Like, what's the first thing that kind of came to mind for you?
I mean, everything from, you know, all these tools that I'm teaching are just great personal development tools and skills. They're great therapy skills. They're great awareness skills. And I'm just inviting everyone to bring that to their relationship to money as well. Right. Which is what a lot of people don't do. It's like these Buddhist tools are these awareness tools, or these slowing down tools and checking in, or the body check-in, or whatever it is. We do them everywhere else, but we don't bring them or connect them to our relationship to money. And that's a big aha for so many of my folks, is just, bring those tools over. They will help your relationship to money. They really will. Like, create a self-care practice. Well, create a self-care practice around money as well. Have money dates, which is just, hey, money, what is one next step that I can take, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is a lot of my creative entrepreneur folks, they're everything from, I'm just moving so fast in my business, and my answer is just, I got to make more money, you know, and that's a good answer, but that's not the only.
It's not the only answer.
It's not
There's
the only
more to
answer.
it than
And
that.
usually when you're just making more money, you're not looking at your numbers. You're not slowing down. And I used to kind of be dogmatic where everyone had to do their own bookkeeping for at least 6 months to a year just to get really into the awareness practice. And my husband, who's also a sensitive dude, more on the sensitive side, you know, he was checking in with his emotions, but he hated bookkeeping so much. And the only way he had to really shift his thinking to, this is like a meditation practice, because he used to meditate for years. So he would sit down to do his bookkeeping, check in with what are the feelings, but also just make it a meditation. And that's how he got through it. He had to pretend. He had to sit down on his cushion, sit down with his computer. We're going to have I've known people who do meditation and they're committed to that, but they could not have money dates. And so they started inserting a 5-minute money date into their meditation practice. And that's how they started doing it. Now, again, everyone, you know, I light my candles, I get out my chocolate, I play some music, or I get out my mocha. That's how I sit down to have a money date. I'm always trying to ritualize everything to make it more interesting, to make it more fun, to make it deeper. And I usually do start with a body check-in first, or I'm like, what's going on with my body? Oh, I need to go on a walk first around the block. I need to go get a snack first, and then I can go take a next step and have a money date, you know, take a next step with my money.
Totally.
Stuff, right? So that's a little bit. I mean, there's so much in what you just said. Yeah.
Well, something that, at least from my perspective, because again, I'm not an expert on the emotional side of this. I see our clients go through it. But obviously, regardless of if you're an entrepreneur, we have to deal with money. It's part of our society. It's part of the world we live in. So there's like the personal finance, personal household money relationship. But then, as you know, obviously we only work with business owners, you know, we're a bookkeeping service for online business owners. And it seems like that jump into entrepreneurship really tests business owners and their relationship with money in a way that I'm sure there's lots of people who, you know, are employees of other companies and have money work to do, but it seems to come up to more, like, it brings about more of an awareness of how they feel about money when they become entrepreneurs. I have my own thoughts on this, but I'm curious, do you agree with that? Is that something you've seen? Do you think entrepreneurship kind of pulls a little bit at some strings for
Of course
people
it
around them
does.
stories?
Of course it does. But I think some for some people, they love doing their business bookkeeping, or they love hiring a bookkeeper for their business side, and they're completely ignoring the personal side. Right. So
Totally.
I've seen
Yep.
that a lot. And you need to know both. You really, and they each bring up a different set of money psychology or issues for each person, right? So the personal side is, are you doing money on your own? Are you doing with a partner? No two people have the same set of if you come together, you each are earning and spending and saving and giving and donating, investing in different ways. And usually couples polarize. So for a couple to sit down with their personal finances, that's a huge thing. And
Yep.
I have a whole way of setting them up for a new kind of money dates where they don't whip out the numbers first. They have story time first in their money dates. Second, they talk about their values, right? Because on the surface, you come together, you have the same values. But again, when you're going to spend or save, you're different, right? Third, you talk about who's on what, who's doing the bookkeeping, right? Who hates the bookkeeping, who's likes to be in control, so they're going to do the bookkeeping, or and then third is making sure on the same team larger goals. So that's just couples and personal finance. And I always say in the personal life, bring in a third party, bring in a bookkeeping team, bring in a financial coach, so that you can sit down even monthly to talk about what's going on, so that's personally. And that just brings up so much of, you're horrified by how the other one spends money, or you think you got the accounting degree or the finance degree, so you feel you're the smarty pants around money and have final say, or you make more, so you think you have final say. There's so much that can go on with couples in the personal realm, right? We can go on and on for there, and we can maybe talk more. But as far as starting your own business, wow, you have to have a lot of chutzpah. You have to have a lot of determination. You have to have a lot of fortitude. You have to have a lot of, what are the words here? Like, grit. You have to have a lot of resiliency, right? And you're going to get knocked down. So what do you do when you get knocked down? I can remember crying on the floor. My husband can remember crying on the floor. I mean, maybe metaphorically or not, over 5 years of us running our own businesses, some of us have it in us to be our own bosses. Some of us don't.
Yeah.
Right. There, you have to be honest about that. And then all sorts of self-value, self-worth gets mixed up and tied up in our relationship to money. Our self-worth and value has nothing to do with the numbers in our bank account, period.
Agreed.
So, I mean, I have a lot of issue with some of the stuff in the coaching world, even though I'm a financial therapist / coach or consultant, right? I'm kind of in the middle there, right? But everything from charge what you're worth, I dislike, or always
Too,
increase
very
your
much.
pricing, right? Yes, sometimes increase your pricing. My private fees have gone way up. My group fees, though, I once lowered them. I lowered my group coaching fees, and I went from struggling to bring 50 people in to 320 students when I moved to a year-long program. So that was a huge leap. So I'm more of a small stepper, and then I get a big leap, where other entrepreneurs are just big leapers all the time.
Oh, I know those people.
You know those people, right? And that sometimes they crash and burn, or usually they crash and burn, but they get up and they go again, right?
Do it again. Yep.
Do it again. I'm more because I'm a somatic person, I'm more slow and steady. I'm also Capricorn, Enneagram 4. I'm a slow stepper, and then I like those big leaps. Please give me those big leaps, right? Because I'm incremental growth and then a big step. So I once lowered my group program fees and made it more accessible for more people. And I really went from struggling to get 40 to 50 people into 320 people in a year-long program. My income went way up that year. I was able to serve so many more people generously in this group format. So I think, again, so to come back to creative entrepreneurs, there's so much. So, and what I've seen is that there's ebbs and flows in life, and there's ebbs and flows with money. Right. And some years we're earning more and we're saving more and we're donating more, and those are amazing years. But some years we're just trying to like make ends meet, we're just trying to stay afloat. And some years, my God, some businesses during COVID took huge dips, had to take, government money, which they were all grateful for. I had a dip where my husband's business went way up because he was
Mhm.
helping people get online, all with all this
Mm,
teaching platforms. So everyone
yep.
wanted to get their businesses online. But so just some years we're having a bit of a recession. So within that, so much money psychology, are you taking that personally? I think back in the day, I would say, oh, the economy's never affected me until it did. Right. So,
Yep.
right. And so how are we attaching our self-worth and our value with how much we charge, with the numbers in our bank account, which the type of year we're having? Or, can we see the larger picture? Do we need to tweak our marketing? Do we need to become more visible in some ways? Is the economy just having a rough year and that's also affecting us? So we have to keep coming back to what's ours, what's not, what can we control, what can we not. But yes, do business owners go through the ringer? Back in the day, if something happened in my business, I would attribute it to my self-worth or value
Mhm.
until I eventually learned how to disconnect from that, you know?
So I think the last couple years, at least as a whole, because we have a very, I think, broad perspective of how like online business is going, because we work with a lot of businesses across the country, and work with some of the top names in the industry, as well as like some smaller businesses that maybe just cross the six-figure mark, are starting to just have success. And I think the industry as a whole has changed a lot in the last couple of years, post-pandemic, Facebook ad tracking changing, the iOS updates, social media engagement looking different post-pandemic. There's a multitude of things that we've talked to our clients about, and we've seen a lot of business owners really struggle with seeing their businesses maybe stagnate for the first time,
Yes.
or
Yes.
taking a step back for the first time when they've had usually big growth
Yeah.
year over year over year, right? And
Yes.
running into their
Yes.
first challenges. So I think from an emotional and psychological standpoint, it's really been testing a lot of people in this industry. And for better or for worse, or consciously or unconsciously, I think a lot of people in this space are really having to take a look at just, again, self-worth as it relates to how much money their business generates,
Yeah.
having to put ego aside. And the ones that I think like our clients right now who are putting ego aside and understanding that this is part of business, are the ones that I think are being resourceful, are um, kind of looking at this from a more positive, opportunistic standpoint of like, this is an opportunity to do something different, or rethink the business, or see where maybe we had holes in the business that now we can fix and make improvements on. But we've also seen a lot of people give up, throw in the towel, which is fine too. If you're done, you're done. I don't shame anybody for that. But I do think that it's been easy for a lot of people in this industry for a long time because there was less competition. There were just a lot of things that were working well. And
Yeah.
then you throw in a pandemic, you throw in technology changes, you throw in more competition, and all of a sudden you're being challenged emotionally and psychologically in a way you haven't before. So I just think that's a very relevant point to bring up as it speaks to right now, and what we're going through economically right now in the online space, because there's more emotion than I've seen in a long time, and more self-worth sort of connection to businesses than I've seen in a long time, I guess maybe in a negative way, versus a
Yes.
lot of people love to connect their self-worth when their businesses are crushing it and growing
Right.
and they feel great. But
Yeah.
the downside is all businesses, I mean, like 99% of businesses are going to have ebbs and flows, ups and downs. Like, are you prepared? And do you have the tools and the skills to be able to handle the emotional side when it's not as good? So I just thought that was really relevant, and I wasn't sure if you've been seeing anything similar.
Of
in the
course.
stage?
I
Yeah.
mean, of course. I mean, I think that, I've probably had 7 different business models since I started 25 years ago. And my favorite business model was the one that lasted 7 or 8 years, right? I called the
Mhm.
golden years. Facebook ads were working. People were signing up for online programs left and right.
Mhm.
I had 500 students, members in my program for every year for 7, 8 years. And
Awesome.
then the pandemic shifted that. There started to be a dip. And then within that year, that's when the Facebook ads totally stopped working, or, went from we were all getting 5, 6, 7, 8 time return on our investment to one time, or just, or basically just breaking even. And so I think, what do we do? I mean, number one is acknowledging we're in an ebb, or we're in a transition year, or we're in an unknown time. There needs to be a lot of self-talk for sure.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Like, everyone gets ebbs and flows. Like, yeah, the flows are great, but the ebbs, they're tough. They do challenge us. They're gonna challenge us, right? This is where our self-care has to be even better. Like, get those days, go to nature, whatever your thing is, like get out in nature, hang out with your animals, what can you do that's free that you can enjoy, like get out in nature, there's so many things that you can do and enjoy with your family and friends and community. And but really, the self-care, whether you meditate, whether you exercise, whatever it is, like go to those tools daily. For me, again, it's body check-ins daily. What's going on?
Yeah.
Trying to get my breath deeper in my body, asking myself, what is one resource thing that I could do to help me feel more okayness or safety or trust in my body? Right. So I do come back to the somatic practices over and over and over, in hard times and good times. And in hard times, whether it's grief, whether it's, an ebb in our business, and also, talking with our girlfriends or talking with our other friends who have online businesses, and really seeing this is not just us. This is across the industry. It really
It's
is.
important. It's
It's,
important. Being a business owner can be very lonely.
yeah.
And it's easy to not get in the best um, self-talk patterns when
Yeah.
it's just you alone. So that's something I've been very fortunate having a business partner, but I always try to be very sensitive to, because most of our clients are, solo owned businesses. But I think that is a really, really important piece, is to have some other person or community outside of a partner. I mean, if your partner is that person, your life partner is that person, then great, that's awesome. But having other people who kind of have an understanding of really what it takes to run a business and be an entrepreneur, I think I think I undervalued that when I first got into this industry, and now see the importance of that far
Yeah.
more.
About 10 years ago, I met a lot of women online running their own businesses, all different kinds, but like me. And we're all still friends and connected. And
It's awesome.
it's really so important. So, yeah, I mean, there are a few businesses. My husband has a client who's a running coach, and he's had his best year, so
Yeah.
there are some folks that, and it depends on where you started, but he is having his best year compared to, he wasn't around during those 7 or 8 years when
Yeah,
everyone.
and we have a number of those clients too, Barry. A lot of people, like, we're going to have a bunch of our clients. I mean, we have a fairly large amount of clients, so it's like a number of them are going to grow this year, and a
Yeah,
number have grown over the last couple years. But there's always there's different businesses have different plateaus, and I do think a lot of the ones that have been around for a long time, like I call them our OG businesses, where they're the ones who I think are being challenged the
yeah,
most, because of the contrast of what it used to be
right.
versus what the reality is now. Those expectations are hard to manage, versus if all is now or the last couple of years, then it's not, you don't know how easy maybe it could have been if you had started 7 years ago. You only know what your experience has been so far, and so far you're making it work, right? So there is definitely something to that.
And this is where we got to get in there, and it's gritty and it's hard, and this is where the resilience is. We have to get creative. So where can we pivot? So a dear friend who was a photographer, high-end photographer, during COVID had to obviously completely pivot, started teaching online programs and doing really well. And I think one of the best things for her was to partner with someone else. And the other woman does all the marketing and she's really good.
Nice.
So that's
Brilliant.
nice. Right. And then she could pull out of her pocket again. I'm going to do some photography. And if I need to fill a cash flow dip. Right. So I think it is going. I opened up a 4-month higher end program. So my year-long program is inexpensive. It's $98 a month, or it's $850 total for a year. That's my more affordable, reasonable for lay folks program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my mentor program is around the 3,000, 3,500 range. And so for me, opening up a second program helped with income, helped fill that gap because I wasn't getting as many signups for the year-long program. So that helped a bit, or I added in more private financial therapy, which is higher priced. But I'm personally not at that level where I was for 7 years. So you have to adjust.
Totally. 100%.
You totally have to adjust and realize, yeah, I might be having not a full recession, but I'm having more of an ebb compared to that. But am I still doing okay? Yes. But yeah, there's going to be dips, and then you have to adjust, and you have to realize this is not about your value and your worth as a human being. It's really separate from that. It's about what's happening in the economy. It's what's happening in your business developmentally. What year are you in? All of that.
100%. It's we're all trying to learn this crazy game of entrepreneurship and running a business and being a leader and being a marketer and insert all the other hats we have to wear. So it's extremely important that we have we can send some kindness to ourselves, right? And understand that it's going to be it's a learner's journey. Like when you think you have it all figured out is when business will go, do you though? And challenge you with something new you've never experienced before. But that is that's why I'm in this. And
that's life. That's life. Yeah. We cannot plan for everything. We're going to get curveballs. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get curveballs in business, and we're going to get curveballs in money. Unfortunately, we just are. We can't plan everything out. So life happens in beautiful ways, and life happens in very painful, challenging ways. It's both. And so, yes. So we had to, I have all these side teachings because I grew up with a lot of tough love. I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad was an entrepreneur. My family they did real estate, but they also owned all the original gay bars in Chicago with my uncles.
Really?
My uncles, my Uncle Steve and my Uncle Pat. And I got to bartend in those bars in my 20s. So why am I bringing this up?
That was probably not very fun at all.
That was amazing.
I have a feeling that was a good time.
Gay bars were amazing. Okay. But my dad, we were middle class, middle upper, right? But he was so very generous, but also had a lot of strings attached and was very controlling. There was a lot of tough love. So to make this short, I know we're at the end of the time, is that I learned so much tough love. The gay bars were separate and great. Those are with my uncles and my family. So that part was really fun. But it still was stressful, like looking at the numbers every night. I remember I would get the numbers of how the bar did would get faxed to my dad. And, I could tell his stress levels, like how were the numbers? Were they good? Were they bad? Well, I could just tell. So I watched him do the dance of entrepreneurship, right? But he had so much tough love with me, like sent me out to get a job when I was 15 years old. Like just go out and apply for 3 to 5 jobs over the weekend. I was like, well, how do you do that? I don't know, And so I had to go. I learned a lot of tough love that when I created my financial therapy methodology from the beginning, I realized I don't want the tough love in here. Like there's so much tough love. There's so much challenges already. We need to bring more kindness. We need to bring more gentleness. We need to bring more compassion to everything in life, to ourselves, to our money journeys, to money conversations with our partners. To the ups and downs. And so I'm always saying, like, sit down for your money date, light your candles, get out your oils, get out your mocha and chocolate, add in doses of compassion and love. Like, where are you being mean to yourself? Where are you beating yourself up? Where are those just old patterns or thoughts, or where did those come from in your family of origin? And how can you just add in more compassion? Hey, guess what you're learning? Hey, guess what you're learning? This is all an experiment. We're learning, oh, what did you learn today? Did you make a mistake? Well, guess what? We all make money mistakes. So what can you learn from it? And how can you do it different next time?
I think that's a good way to end it. And Bari, numbers and chocolate will always work just fine for me. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. If people want to get in contact with you, learn more about what you do, where's the best place for everyone to go?
My website, baritessler.com, BARITESSLER.com. I have a podcast. I have a blog. Go find my books everywhere and anywhere. And Instagram and Facebook. And I just got on LinkedIn this year or last year.
Excellent. Well, Bari, again, thank you so much. Really enjoyed our conversation, and let's do it again.
Sounds good. I would love that. Thank you, Parker.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Bye.
Bye.